On behalf of the American Association for Employment and Education and our Director of Professional Development, Daphne Donaldson, from East Baton Rouge Parish Schools in Louisiana, I'd like to welcome you to the AAEE sponsored webinar, This Is Us, Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. My name is Tim Newbert, and I'm the Executive Director of AAEE. Please allow me to quickly cover a few housekeeping matters before we begin. During the webinar, all attendees will be muted. However, you are encouraged to post any questions or comments as our presenter will allow time to address them toward the end of her presentation. For those attending live, any technical difficulties can be addressed by sending a message to any meeting by clicking the button in the upper right-hand corner. If you are not currently a member of AAEE, please visit our website, aaee.org, for more information. Our association connects college and university professionals and others who prepare educators with school system human resources professionals and others who hire them. Related to that mission, we offer publications such as our annual Job Search Handbook for Educators and the just released 2017-2018 Educator Supply and Demand Report. We maintain a calendar of education-specific job fairs held around the country, and we host events such as the annual Conference and Education Career Fair, which was held in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania last fall and will be held in St. Louis, Missouri in November, and of course, our webinars. Today, we're pleased to have our friend Dr. Christine Ermold from Kenai Peninsula Borough School District joining us. Thank you for sharing information about KPBSD with us today, Christine. I'll now turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I have been very grateful for my own organization's membership in AAEE, as it has allowed us to really be able to connect with other universities that prepare our teachers, as well as other school districts that may be searching in different ways or recruiting in different ways than what we've been used to. So thank you for the opportunity today. My name is Christine Ermold, and I'm the Director of Human Resources for the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. I am in the midst of working on sharing my screen, and of course, when we tried this the other day, there weren't any delays or any issues, but of course now it is taking its sweet time. So I believe we're about set now. I wanted to start today by just kind of showing you a little bit about our state. And the Kenai Peninsula is accessible by road, both from the contiguous U.S. as well as from Anchorage, which is our state's hub, but not our state's capital. Many of our visitors come to the Kenai Peninsula for the first time either on a cruise ship up through the Inside Passage or sometimes via air for tourist visits. And what we find is that many times after people return to or come to our state the first time, they'll then return to our state and rent a motorhome so that they can enjoy all the beauty that our state has to offer. It is an interesting note for many people that our district does encompass the entire Kenai Peninsula. That means that for our 25,000 plus square miles, we're actually larger than the state of West Virginia. And our peninsula is known as Alaska's playground because everybody who lives in our very beautiful state wants to come down to the peninsula. And they enjoy a variety of things down here that I'll share with you as we go on today. But it's really a pretty remarkable place, and I'm thrilled that you chose to join us today just so that I could kind of introduce our home to you. So our school district is the largest employer on the Kenai Peninsula. We have 1,200 employees that are spread out over 44 work sites. Typically, we have between 600 and 700 certified teachers or certified employees, and we definitely strive to support all of our employees in advancing into leadership roles, whether it's our support employees who are seeking to take on new opportunities or step into a teacher role, or our teachers who are seeking to become administrators or teacher leaders in different areas. Our district has 44 work sites, and of those, 4 are fly-in schools. We have 3 that are native village schools, and we have 4 that are Russian village schools. Those schools typically range in size anywhere from about 30 to 95 students per school. They're usually K through 12 sites with just a handful of teachers. And the Kenai Peninsula is really a pretty remarkable and beautiful place that when you think about really the idea of coming to the Kenai or even visiting the Kenai and thinking about our district statistics, you should know that one of the unusual things is that we have both your typical urban large community, a school with 500 high school students, for example, as well as the more rural communities that I just talked about with our very small either native village schools or Russian village schools, or even just a small school located on the road system, such as Cooper Landing K through 12 school, which has about a dozen students. We partner with a variety of different community agencies and providers. We do have great hospitals here, fabulous law enforcement, great natural resource agencies. The other large employers in our area include, of course, the petroleum industry, as well as our state agencies in all different areas. It's a pretty remarkable and broadly kind of spread area in terms of employment opportunities when you think about our school district. One thing to know is that because of the geography of our state, it is important that teachers plan to own a car if someone is going to live here. Our housing options here are varied, and they include options for both renting and buying in a variety of price ranges. Our realtors or our rental agents have great connections to help people find different housing options, but unlike some school districts in our state, the only communities in which the school district provides housing for our faculty are in villages where there are no rental or ownership options and where commuting daily simply isn't a viable option. I'm going to share with you some images that were shared with me by our school district employees who live here now, who are teachers, custodians, administrators. And as I talk with you a little bit about our district statistics, I just wanted to put into context that this is what it looks like for our employees who are living and working here on a day-to-day basis. Because many times you may see promotional pictures of Alaska and those types of things, and I just felt like it was really important for everyone to get a sense of what real life is like for those of us who live here. So you should know that the district offers very competitive salaries and benefits for all of our employees. Negotiations are currently in progress, but our annual teacher salaries start at $48,000 a year, and teachers progress across the salary schedule based on credits or degrees earned after completion of their prep program, their teacher prep program, as well as based on experience in other accredited public schools. We do offer incentives for our teachers to obtain national board certification and doctoral degrees, as well as incentives to work in our more remote locations. We do contribute to the teacher retirement system, in which new members are vested after 5 years, and we have a choice of 2 comprehensive health insurance plans. We also provide life insurance, and our employees also receive paid personal leave and sick leave. In terms of professional development, you should know that 66% of our teachers already have an advanced degree, and our annual career development program provides teachers the opportunity to pursue their own professional learning. But then we also have a new teacher mentoring program for our early career teachers, as well as provide full-time release coaches to support teachers who want to advance their skills in other areas. And this happens in conjunction with the school's professional development program, as well as the ongoing district professional development that currently is very focused on strategies to help our teachers learn to make sure that every student experiences a personalized learning environment and that our students can take personal ownership for their own learning and growth. As you've seen in some of these pictures, our geographical location does offer year-round adventure. We have pretty mild summers. We've got relatively warm winters. Our outdoor activities are very plentiful, as you can tell. Everything from berry picking and wildlife viewing to hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, the list just goes on. Our climate is pretty mild in contrast to interior and northern Alaska. Our winters typically last a month or two longer than the lower 48, and then our December temperatures average in the mid-20s, while our summers are brilliant with nearly 24-hour sunlight and a beautiful green landscape. It's important to know that right now, the Kenai Peninsula currently enjoys the lowest cost of living in our state. And although this is part of the state, this is the part of the state that all Alaskans really want a vacation to. Those of us who live here year-round enjoy relatively well-maintained roads, reasonable grocery stores, amazing healthcare providers, movie theaters, a variety of opportunities that you would find in other cities. But we are set and spread out through this stunning geographical area. So personally, I am a lifelong Alaskan. I'm a public of the K through 12 public school system here in our state, as well as our university system. I grew up spending summers on the Kenai Peninsula. I made it my permanent home almost 20 years ago. And I'm a good example of the district investing in our employees and providing leadership opportunities, as I started out as an elementary teacher. I then became a principal teacher, which is someone who teaches a full teaching load and manages the school's administrative duties. And then I became a regional principal and oversaw 3 various small remote schools. And then I moved to a typical large elementary school where I was the principal. And since then I've been at the district level as an elementary education director and human resources director. My husband, however, is from upstate New York, and he moved here for a position in special education. And between us, with our son, our nieces, our nephews, this is really home for us. This is a place that we have a deep personal investment, and whether people are simply coming for an experience of a lifetime or whether they're coming to make this their home, it matters greatly to both of us that people have the opportunity to really enjoy all that our home has to offer, and all the incredible educational experiences, both in our schools as well as in our communities that we have available. So I want to tell you just a little bit about applying with our district and what that means and what it looks like. And then I'll answer questions that you may have for us, and hopefully provide clarification on any issues surrounding certification or any of those types of things that may be on your mind. So our district uses an online application system called AppleTrack. And applications for certificated employment are accepted year-round, although it is important that employees make sure to update their application or keep it current within that end of the fiscal year, June to July period. When candidates apply online in AppleTrack, they can import all of their information to support their application, such as a resume and a cover letter and transcripts and those types of things. But what is probably the single biggest mistake that we see people make in their applications is they forget to hit the finish and submit button. So finishing the application, or at least getting it mostly done, and then hitting that finish and submit button is necessary so that someone would actually be considered for a position. If someone's just started an application, they won't be considered as a candidate. And many people don't realize that even after hitting the finish and submit button, employees can still then go and edit their whole application and anything that they wish by just going in and making those modifications. And the principals, the hiring administrators will see any changes that are made as soon as a candidate makes them. So when hitting the finish and submit button, that doesn't lock in someone's application. They're not, it's not frozen in time. It is something that absolutely can be changed and modified on an ongoing basis. The school principals themselves select the pool of candidates that they would like to interview, and they contact those candidates directly. So maintaining current phone and email contact information is super essential. Many of our principals are working on a super tight time frame once they schedule a candidate pool to interview. So being available on an ongoing basis to be reached is very, very important. Many of our administrators also prefer candidates who may not be physically here in the community to interview via Skype, because many times the phone interviews can be a little bit stilted, a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit awkward, and it's difficult to tell what parts of that unusualness may be coming from someone's communication style versus the circumstances, and neither the candidate nor the interviewing committee have the opportunity to benefit from the nonverbal communication cues that occur during an interview. So that Skype piece is something that we really encourage candidates to have in order and signed up. In terms of timing, our most difficult to fill positions are typically posted in February and March. Our other positions start being posted April through June. And sometimes we have a few unexpected openings that are posted in August. And very, very rarely will we have a vacancy that's posted in October or November for a second semester teaching position. But in essence, someone who is really interested in coming to work in our district should start planning the spring before they would like to be able to be here. So watching the website, monitoring the vacancies, becoming familiar with the schools where they would like to apply or be interviewed. All of those things should really start happening around January and February. The very first vacancies that we fill are typically administrative vacancies. And once we have our principals all in place, then we start working on filling the teaching vacancies. And then our support staff vacancies typically are not posted until June of the preceding school year. So in terms of that timeline, if someone has a spouse or other family member, a significant other who may also be looking for employment, in addition to the many opportunities that we have working with the state of Alaska, private employers, healthcare industry, forestry, all of those different areas, our school district also is hiring then for support staff positions starting in June, and that typically really continues year-round, but the June through September is usually the busiest time for that window of candidates. When someone signs a contract with a school district in Alaska, it's something that really merits careful consideration, and this is something that's a little bit unusual in our state compared to some others, which is why I draw attention to it. Unlike in some states, when a teacher signs a contract with one school district in our state, the teacher cannot be considered by other school districts for that same contract year that they've already signed for. And essentially, that is an issue of professionalism among educators in our state that is influenced by the Professional Teaching Practices Code of Ethics that helps to make sure that none of our students in Alaska, none of our children are shortchanged by someone who may accept one job and then go, oh no, I think I want to work here instead, or oh no, I want to go there. And that can be really challenging for the potential employees because they feel like, well, gosh, you know, I need to lock something down. It's hard to go on faith and not know if I'm going to get a position in one place or another. But the reality is that in our state, we do take a breach of contract very seriously. And it can result in someone having their contract suspended for a year. So we really encourage people to take a close look at contracts and to consider a district carefully before they actually sign a contract. Something that is also really important for our district is that our strategic plan and the websites of our various schools provide some important information that is well worth a candidate's time for reviewing. As a district, we focus on preparing students for their futures. So to support that, our individual schools embrace personalized opportunities that help each student to select opportunities that are meaningful to him or her. While some of our students may graduate with certificates in a career or certificates in a technical field, we have other students that graduate with a handful of college credits, and we even have students who, by the time they graduate, they've also earned an associate's degree through Kenai Peninsula College, which is a branch of the University of Alaska system. Really being able to help our students make choices and allowing them the opportunities to identify things that they're passionate about and good at and want to pursue is something we really pride ourselves in. We also pride ourselves on being responsive to the community and to parents and to involving people in our schools. We every year have approximately 4,000 volunteers who are engaged in our sites, and this involvement and this engagement between the community and the school is a really critical part of our identity as the school district. So when you think about this idea of the Kenai Peninsula, obviously you now know that people can drive here, they can fly here, they can cruise here. We've got multiple opportunities from working in a comprehensive 500 student school to a more remote site that is still on the road system with a dozen students to a school that you have to fly into in order to get there. And we have a quality of life here that, frankly, people dream about. These are the things that people put on a bucket list. And for us, as you've seen, for our employees, this is our lifestyle, and this is where we've chosen to live and raise our own children. So with that basic information out of the way, I would like to just pull up this map of the Kenai Peninsula so that you can kind of be able to refer to some of the communities that we have. And I'd love to be able to answer your questions. Things related to certification and salary and starting here are all things that I know many times people are wondering about, and yet it can be hard to find some of that information. So for example, one of the most common questions that I hear is whether or not certification is reciprocal for Alaska. And we don't have a reciprocity agreement, but we do have a system where a candidate who holds a license to teach in another state can be eligible for an initial teacher license in Alaska, assuming that they met certain criteria in order to get that license. So Alaska has not been huge on having alternate or waivers or, you know, those types of things, other approaches to get into teaching, unless that other approach has a student teaching component that results in an institutional recommendation for licensure. And then down the road, Alaska also requires that if the person doesn't already have it for their initial, then they do have to, for their professional license, complete competency exams as well as coursework in Alaska Studies. So as you or someone you know are considering the idea of being in Alaska or teaching in Alaska, making sure that someone has had a teacher preparation program that involves student teaching, making sure they've passed a basic competency exam that's permitted by the state of Alaska, and making sure that they have passed a content area exam that is relevant to their area of endorsement or preparation, are three things that people can do to kind of get themselves ready to be able to apply for licensure certification. One of the other common questions that we get is whether or not we reimburse moving expenses, or whether we have funds available to help people move here. And if you look at the map, you can see down in the bottom left where both Nanwalek and Port Graham and Susan B are at, as well as in the top center where Tabona is at. Those are places where we do provide reimbursement for up to $2,500 in moving expenses, because those are considered our across the water schools, meaning from the main area of the Kenai Peninsula, you would have to go across the water to get there. And so we do support our new certificated employees in being reimbursed for actual moving expenses up to $2,500. We also do provide assistance to our certificated staff in the form of round trip flights in and out of their communities several times a year. In addition to anytime we're providing professional development for faculty, of course, we provide their round trip travel to and from and take care of hotels and those types of things when it's an essential requirement for travel. So our district is unusual in that we are really reflecting every bit of what Alaska has, from the most remote to the most typical, as you can see through this map. So with that, I know I've talked for the last half hour, and I very much would like to be able to answer questions and respond to anything that people may be wondering. You can use the attendee chat message section to be able to send any questions that you may have, and I'd be glad to respond to those. And I believe one other critical thing that people often wonder about relates to the idea of coming here with their own children and what it might be like to have a family here. And we, as a school district, I'll tell you, we are the largest employer, and that does mean that many of our employees may be related to one another or married to one another. It's not uncommon for us to have people who have graduated from our school system that we later employ. And because of that continuity and kind of that long-term view that we have on things, our schools tend to be very, very nurturing and very welcoming. As a result, it typically is not a difficult thing for students to transition into our schools from outside. Our students tend to be more welcoming and more accepting than what you might experience in some major cities. Our students also are often experienced with having family members who live far away and out of state. And because of that, one of the things that people often comment on is the very welcoming community and the way that everybody just kind of wraps around one another and both supports one another as well as leans on others for support when we're facing some challenging things. Although you can easily, within 6 to 12 hours, hop on a flight and be out of the state and wherever you need to go, we often will spend holidays with people who become extended family for us because some of us don't have parents here or siblings here, and that sense of connection is a pretty special way to raise kids. It's a piece, I think, that I often hear nationwide people miss in their own communities, and it's something that we really pride ourselves in. Even when we may, disagree with one another on a political stance or on a political matter, we know that at the end of the day, we're still neighbors. We still treat one another with respect. We're still gracious towards one another. And we can always count on one another to watch out for each other, whether it's from roving bears or other strangeness that may occur. We do not experience a lot of violence or you know, we don't have the levels of drug issues that other places have had. There's certainly been some of it percolating, but not nearly to the extent of any place else that we've encountered. But interestingly, the Kenai Peninsula does have three very different regions that you should know about, because they each kind of have their own flavor. So in looking at this map, where the main cluster of yellow is at, we refer to that as the Central Peninsula. And that includes the Nikiski down to Soldotna, out to Sterling. That whole area is considered the Central Peninsula. When you look at the southern, I guess it would be the southwest area, that is really the Homer area. And Homer is a really remarkable, beautiful, stunningly gorgeous place to visit, that has incredible arts programs, really strong sports activities, strong academic programs, and it is out at the head of the bay where you can see on this map that we have Razdolna, Kachemak Selo, and Volznesenka, which are our three Russian villages at the head of the bay, where we do have Russian Orthodox Old Believers. And then the other kind of distinct community that we have is over to the east, which is the Seward Community. And there it's a connected school system with Seward Elementary. I think they have about 260 students, to Seward Middle that sits around, I'm thinking 60 to 70-ish, and then Seward High, which is up around 90 to 110-ish. And those students obviously stay together from the time they start preschool up through high school and have those connections to one another. It's a community that, as you can tell on the map, sits right at the head of a bay. That's Resurrection Bay, and it is right in the mountains. It is the home of the world famous Mount Marathon race, held every year on July 4th, where runners of a variety of skill levels race up to the top of Mount Marathon and race back down to the bottom. Our other little communities that you can see on the road system there, Moose Pass and Cooper Landing and Hope, those are tiny little K through 12 schools, or Moose Pass is a K through 6 right now. They're typically a single teacher with students of all grade levels. And they are pretty remarkable places to live and work. I've had the privilege of being the principal at those schools before, and those are places where the school truly is the hub of the community. And everyone who lives there comes into the school at any given point to share their talents and gifts, to contribute to the educational opportunities that our students have. And in that way, they're a very kind of traditional way of schooling and living, in the way that you might expect multiple ages of students to be learning together. However, they are extremely cutting edge in terms of their use of technology to connect with other students in schools and classes. So, for example, it would not be unusual for me to walk into Cooper Landing School and see a 10th or 11th grade student participating via video technology conferencing with a high school social studies class at Kenai Central. Our teachers have access to specialized training in not only how to use those resources, but then how to teach in a way that engages the student from afar with the other students who are live in the classroom. And I think the skill of our teachers was beautifully exemplified one day when I happened to be observing a lesson, and I watched one of the students from a 500 student high school come over to the VTC and ask my student at my little remote school there if it was possible that his parents might bring him to town for a homecoming dance. And it was a especially neat thing to watch that our students have so connected using technology and getting to know one another that seemed like a very normal occurrence to them. And that social interaction was a pretty amazing thing to watch. So although I haven't seen any questions show up in the attendee chat, I believe there have been some questions that have been funneled through the back channel to AAEE. And so I'll go ahead and turn it over in case Tim's got a few that he'd like to share.
Yes, thank you, Christine. Really appreciate it. This is really interesting information and insights into the Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. And we do have a few questions here. Do you host student teachers from any other U.S. states?
Tim, I'm so glad someone thought to ask about that. We host student teachers from all over the place, and even student teachers who reside here are often taking courses for their teacher prep programs via distance. So in terms of student teachers coming here, we do have an application. We require that they fill out the online application, and on our school district web page, we have a link that candidates can take a look at to see what all is required. I am just dragging this over onto my screen. So this is the school district's website. And off of it, people can go to departments and human resources, of course. And then partway down is a link to practicum, intern, and student teaching information. So we do host pre-service teachers at all levels of their program. And as it relates to student teaching, we do work collaboratively with their university programs to make sure that they are able to meet the requirements for their program. And we have at times worked with those universities to arrange a local supervisor of that student teacher who could observe them more frequently. Because of course that is a required component of many prep programs, and that can be expensive for programs to send a supervisor out. So that's something that we can help with. Sometimes, depending upon the experience that a candidate's looking for, we may have housing available. So for example, just this last year in the village of Tyonek, we had one of our primary grade teachers who was looking to host a student teacher, and we happened to have housing available. So every now and then we'll have those options. The University of Alaska's Kenai Peninsula College does also have student housing available. So if the prep program is one that has a partnership or can reach out through the University of Alaska, student housing may also be a viable option. In terms of Diane's question about what about housing, we hear it's very expensive. Rentals here on the Kenai Peninsula, it really varies on what you're looking for. You know, it's not unusual to find a several bedroom house that you can rent for $1,200 a month. But it's also possible to find apartments that are, you know, around that $800 a month mark, which with our salaries and cost of living is a pretty manageable thing. I noted Sherry's question about, on average, what percentage of your student teachers are hired to teach in Alaska. It really depends upon the candidate's student teaching experience. So in our district, we typically hire 90 to 100% of our student teachers. There have, of course, been circumstances where either student teachers have only wanted to work part-time, or they got through and discovered that their student teaching experience maybe helped them realize that maybe teaching wasn't truly what they wanted to do, but that has been pretty rare. And I really believe that our investment in helping to prepare people to become successful teachers is one that yields benefits, because those teachers typically stay with us for quite a while and later on help to nurture and train new teachers in their own classrooms. I was certainly a part of that cycle, and it's exciting to see where it's taken me, and I hope that I'll continue to welcome other new teachers into our area as well.
Christine, you may have mentioned this, I don't believe so. In a typical year, how many teaching vacancies do you have in Kenai?
It's a great question. We experience a pretty steady 8 to 10% turnover. So in any given year, we are usually hiring between 60 and 70 certificated employees. And of those, we will normally, in a normal year, have a handful of student teachers that are stepping into some of those roles. We also, of course, try to do a great deal of hiring out of our University of Alaska system. But I will tell you that our school district, because of our lifestyle that we have here and our location, tends to be somewhat competitive to get into. We have many people who will be hired in a remote school district in Alaska and who will then decide not to sign a contract to return and seek employment here on the peninsula. So that's the main ways that people get in. But I do also make it a point to attend several job fairs each year, as well as get out and do campus visits for any of our teacher prep programs that would either like to hear about teaching in Alaska, living in Alaska, certification in Alaska. Those are all things that I will go and teach about and visit with candidates about. And it's not unusual that we find someone who is a great match that then I end up getting to bring back to Alaska for our following school year. It's an exciting thing to be a part of.
So you the next question is regarding benefits, and you mentioned, unique benefits. You mentioned the, very unusual benefits and the challenge related to bringing people together for professional development and other activities, and flying, reimbursing people to fly in and such. Are there any other benefits that you think are unique to Alaska or your district specifically that you would like to highlight?
Our state embraced through the New Teacher Center down in California, we had embraced a new teacher mentoring program and had participated in a great deal of research about the impacts of mentoring for new teachers, both in relationship to their success and in relationship to remaining in the profession. And as a result of the things that we learned, we actually established our own teacher mentoring program. So our district provides a handful of full-time release mentors who engage our early career teachers, those who are within their first 2 years of the profession, in an ongoing mentoring cycle that is grounded in a scope and sequence of what we know our teachers absolutely must have mastered at different points in those first 2 years to be confident and successful teachers. Those areas of focus by quarter are all grounded in Charlotte Danielson's Framework for Teachers. Our teacher evaluation system is also grounded in her research, although it does not reflect like a checklist evaluation type thing based off of all of her domains, components, and evaluations that or elements that she's identified. But the reason that this matters is so many of our new teachers are coming to Alaska. They're leaving their families behind. They're leaving their homes behind to come to a new place. And that support system that we put in place for them is so essential to both their success as teachers as well as their emotional and physical well-being, that we hear time and time again from teachers about what an amazing experience they have being able to have access to a mentor in an ongoing manner, and having a mentor that has also worked with some of the other teachers in a school and has maybe coached a team's or a school's collaborative team really provides our new teachers the opportunity to receive support from an exemplary educator who already knows the ins and outs. In the professional development realm, one of the other things we do that is unusual in our state is we have regular early release days, where at least one Wednesday a month we dismiss school early so that our educators have time for work with their collaborative teams, whether that's for data analysis or lesson analysis, or looking through what is upcoming in terms of their scope and sequence and grouping students to plan for instruction. All of those are areas that we really highly value. And that is on top, that early release time is on top of our in-service time and our days with no students, where we provide time for either report cards or professional development or mandatory trainings, all of those things. We try really hard to make sure that our teachers have the time they need to be able to do those things, because we know that personalizing learning for our students, even though we keep our class sizes low, class sizes for us typically range between 17.5 and 24.5, 25-ish. For us, we know that that process of planning and making sure that students have opportunities for ownership in their learning takes time, and so we try to give it. Something that's interesting happening in our district is that we do have a growing move towards what we refer to as learning walks, where we have teams of educators who have the opportunity to walk through and observe in classrooms to gather data about effective personalized learning practices, and then share that back with the staff, so that, so many times as teachers, we get into our classroom and we start doing our work, and it's hard for us to have time to go and visit in another room and learn from our colleagues at a time that we're not also responsible for students. And so in that way, our district really invests in the professional learning of our faculty. And I'm really, really proud of that, because not all districts have been able to maintain that focus.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. That's all the questions that were fed over to me, and it looks like no one else has posted any questions. So I just want to thank you again, Christine, for taking the time to review with us information about Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. It does sound like an amazing place, and hopefully our participants will take it to heart and spread the word about Kenai Peninsula Borough School District. So thanks again for your presentation, and here all the thank yous are coming in. So thanks so much, Christine.
Thanks so much, Tim, and I wish you all a fantastic summer.
Thank you. Bye-bye.